The first thing we have to do is a little bit of background work, and step one is make sure we actually have a project charter. We need to know who are the people involved, the sponsor, the key team members, the team leader, any other participants. What dates are important, what's the overall budget, objectives, constraints, and outcome. Once we have the charter, we have to come up with a project scope. Everything that's included in the project, and sometimes things that are specifically not included. All right, now that we have the project identified, the scope and the charter, the next step is to create a work breakdown structure. And what that is it's a list of all the tasks that are needed to complete the project. And it's the foundation of all of project management. So this is a very important step. Some important things to keep in mind is the WBS is inclusive. It includes every task regardless of who does the task. So if you're contracting some of the work to a subcontractor, that still goes in the work breakdown structure. Also, it's exclusive. Anything that's not related to getting the project completed doesn't go in the work breakdown structure. So it's only looking at the project, and it's looking at the entire project. Now, a couple things about a task. Tasks need to be worth managing. So they need to be significant. They need to cost money. If the task doesn't cost any money, then there's not much point in needing to manage it. They use resources. So a task will use people, it will use tools and equipment, and it will consume materials. And lastly, a task has to produce an outcome in the project. So again, if it's not related to the project, then it's not part of the work breakdown structure. If it's somewhat insignificant, then it's not worth managing and it doesn't go in the work breakdown structure. So it needs to be things that are managed, and keep in mind that the most important things that we're managing as project managers are time, people, and money. So if it doesn't involve those things, then it's not really a task that needs to be managed. Okay, we start with a work breakdown structure, and I'm using a milling machine for this example. So I've started with a hierarchy here. I know we need a new milling machine, and a couple of main activities are we need a purchase contract, we need to do installation work, there needs to be inspections, and we need some startup activities. So it's kind of like a brainstorming list. You start with the overall thing you want to accomplish, and then you start putting in the components that need to be done to get that accomplished. Okay, I have my start of my hierarchy, and now I've got more items in it. So under purchase contract, I've got some things like getting quotes, we have to place an order, eventually we'll have to pay some invoices. Over here in inspections, we've got a pre-shipment inspection, so at some point someone has to go to the factory and inspect that mill and make sure it's what we intended to buy. There needs to be installation inspections and of course final inspections. And then startup here has got some training and testing. What I'm doing is I'm trying to kind of list all the different categories of things that have to be done and what their relationships are, or kind of group them in like things. At this point, I don't care about time or money or who's doing it. I just want to list all the different things that have to be done. That's my work breakdown structure. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that work breakdown structure and I'm going to put it into a list format. So if you notice, I've got my 4 categories: purchase, installation, inspection, and startup. And here I've got, that's my first level, purchase, installation, inspection, and startup. So there's my 4 main categories, and Notice I also added one more category. I decided that delivery categories need to be in here. So I added a group of delivery items. So ship, hire forklift, move it to the site once it arrives. Milling machines are very heavy. They have to be leveled once they get here, and at some point we have to pay for the shipping. Okay, so here's my work breakdown structure. This list of things that have to be done. I put an ID number down the side for each one. And the next thing I have to do is I have to estimate the duration, how many days each item will take. And at this point, we don't have to be too precise with it. We just need kind of an approximation. So getting quotes, I'm thinking that'll take 20 days. And placing the order to get it through all the admin processes, that's going to take 5 days. And I just went down the list. For each item, I put how many days I think that task will take. The next thing I need to do is identify predecessors. So a predecessor is something that has to be completed before this item is started, or sometimes they start together, sometimes they finish together. But for this example, I'm going to just focus on start-finish relationships. You notice that I think I made a mistake here, but I've got my quotes. Yeah, I messed these two up. So quotes can start anytime. You can get quotes, so it doesn't really have a predecessor. Placing the order cannot be done until we have our quotes in hand. So the predecessor for place order should be number 2, and I put number 3. The next item, pay invoices. So for that I have a predecessor of number 22, and that's way down here, final inspection. We're not going to pay for this milling machine until we know that it's everything that we expected it to be. So the predecessor for that, even though the previous item is place order, we're not going to pay the invoice as soon as we place our order. We're going to pay after we've done our final inspection. So these predecessors don't really go in order. Some have the same predecessor. You notice here under electrical, for each one of these activities, I have a predecessor of number 9, and that's after the machine is leveled. So what I'm saying there is after the machine is in place and all the leveling is done, then we can go ahead and start hooking up all the electrical. We can do the main electrical, the control wiring, the computer panel, and the plumbing. Those can all start at the same time, but they can't start until the machine is leveled. Okay, so that's my work breakdown structure. And none of this is really done on a computer. Well, I use Microsoft Excel just to make it easier, but you could do it all by hand on a pad. And this is the information that you need to start feeding into the software. Once we have this information, the software can do amazing things. But without this basic information, the software won't help you at all. So the first steps are deciding what it is you're trying to accomplish. Come up with your list of tasks for your work breakdown structure. Do an estimate on how long each task will take, and identify the predecessors for each task. And maybe you'll notice also here, some of these items don't have predecessors, such as review manual. Well, I don't really know when that's going to be done. I don't know if maybe the place I'm buying it, maybe the manuals are already printed. And so I don't really know, and at this point it's not really very important. Another one here is number 26, obtain test materials. Well, that doesn't really have a predecessor. I could do it at any time. And so for now, I don't need to list the predecessor. Okay, so you manage the things that need to be managed. Not everything has to be managed to a great detail. Okay, thanks for listening.